I trained as a designer. So you can see that in my work, people know my work, it comes in and out of my work, that clarity and cleanliness and stuff. I went to Mana College in Porirua, Titahi Bay. I grew up in Titahi Bay, went to Mana College, Decile 1 school, and I realized in my 7th form year I was taking photography, painting, sculpture, design. I took English because we had to, and I took geography for the trip. So I realized pretty quickly that I was never going to be a mathematician or anything. And then I tried to get into design school, and I had no computer knowledge, none. I actually, very little people know, but I spent an entire 4 days at design school. I got in, I went to my very first computer class, and everyone turned on their big Macs, and I sat in the class just going, trying to find buttons. And then I actually got a heads up from Claire Robinson. Now, Claire Robinson used to teach computers, but then I know she's in a political realm. I used to see her on TV. And so she sort of kept me aside and said, you don't really know the right end and the back end of a computer. Basically, I got told to leave. So I did a very short turnaround, and then I had to get some computer knowledge. So I went to another art, like a barefoot kind of polytech, finished there with an A average, got straight back into design school the following year and finished the top 3 of design school. Periodically through those times at design school, I realized I didn't want to be a designer. I was such a nerd at school that I'd pretty much had all my credits I needed to graduate before I'd graduated. So I ended up doing some first year papers, which were in contemporary Māori design and art with Ross Hemara, Rangi Kipa at the time. And so once I realized this whole world, this other world, the art world, I realized that I didn't want to deal in Helvetica and stuff, and then I got offered a job at DesignWorks as a graduate, and I turned that job down, and my father went nuts. And then I had a show not long after that in '99, which this year is my 20th year, so I've got a survey show coming up. So yeah, so that's how I got into it. I was never going to be anything else other than an artist or a designer, and I realized that I had some amazing opportunities as a designer. Those still come through in my work. I still have input into, like catalogs and the layout of things. And yeah, it's a different eye. Like Ian talked before about 100 works. I was just there was a lecture that Julia Morrison did, and she was design school trained too. Julia Morrison and Gordon Walters was design school trained in Wellington. And we were always given proposals. We were always doing jobs. It was always this job. We had 6 jobs at a time. I remember Julia saying that she didn't know what she was dealing with when she went from design school to art school, and she came across her first open brief. She's panicked. She said, what's an open brief? Like, I've just done briefs all my life. So when they asked her why she did 100 heads, then she said, why not? Like, why not? And it's just that thing for me too. If something works, then we try it in this element, and then does it, and it's a nice way. I think design training gave me a really good way of editing. It was good. I know exactly the first work I sold. I know exactly what it paid for and what it made. I had a tiny little box frame, which I think Spotlight had just come on the scene. And I had a series of, I was using a lot of Kiwiana and dolls and bits and pieces and taking heads off and putting this, and I just glued them in and talked about a jungle, because my very first trip to Rotorua, when there was the carving school, there's a pit. I don't know if anyone's been to the carving school. There's a pit. And it's like, even the thought of it's quite daunting, and a lot of tourists would come in and take photos. And I remember talking to this young carver there. He said, bro, you watch this. And they would come in and they were taking photos, and he would turn around and he'd have, a patu, or he'd have his mallet, and he'd go, and they would do, and it was all these photographs, and it felt like a zoo, felt like a pit. That was the very first artwork I did. I sold it for $80. I don't know what I did, but I sold 10 works at $80. I took a check home from in December 1999, which is going back to the same gallery that I showed my first show. I took an $800 check home from the Porirua Council. I strutted in the door, because at this point I was working out of my dad's shed, which was in a rugby museum / art studio. I strutted in, I slammed it on the table and said, how's that? And at that point he was, which some of the work relates to him, at that point he turned around without batting an eyelid and he said, I can't believe people pay good money for that shit. And I was like, Dad, come on, man. So, here's a guy, but when it came down to it, he's very proud, and he's my best mate. So he's only 18 years older than me. since I got the nod for the McCahon residency, you get about almost a year's of notice that you have it. It's quite a looming, it's almost, I mean, I know each artist would take it different, but it's quite a looming feeling. It's the same as if you drive a certain kind of unique vehicle and you notice every similar vehicle on the road. So if you drive a certain, you're like, hey, or someone's got something on. Once you have the McCahon, for me anyway, I've noticed every McCahon. I've been invited to every viewing, every book launch, everything, and it's in a really lovely way. But there's all these deep things about McCahon's work, and we'll, you know, where he sits as a painter and stuff. And when I went through a whole pile of interviews and stuff that was thrown at me weekly by other people. But when he spoke about the work, Here I Give Thanks to Mondrian, it was purely as it was a one-liner. He literally said, you know, I just enjoyed his work once I saw it in the flesh. So this is a painting just a nod to Mondrian, which I thought was really nice. They didn't have a big long-winded thing. It was just, he does good work. I really like it. So here's my Here I Give Thanks to Mondrian. So for me, it was Here I Give Thanks, sort of end of story. And it was thank you for the resonance. It was thank you for the inspiration. It was also thank you for the fact that sometimes those inspirations or those the starting points or the genesis of anything is right there at your door, be it your kids, be it your father, be it your grandfather. A lot of it was just a homage to certain people, to certain aesthetics, to certain times, to my father, to Sidney Nolan. The Sidney Nolan painting, the painting that's actually from, traced. So when I trace those works, I don't adjust nothing. If I add something to it, there's no fabrication, there's no, it would look better if it was longer or taller, or the legs. That's why the Nolan has no tail. The painting has no tail on the horse, which really, really disturbs my 11-year-old autistic son. He's like, he can't believe it, and it's got an amazing 2D. But I had the blessing of having a residency in Sydney, and I would go up the hill, and every time I'd go past the Art Gallery New South Wales, I'd go and stand in the Tuckers and the Boyds and the Nolans, and just the most phenomenal paintings I've ever seen. And then I saw this amazing big portrait show that showed photos of Nolan on a gimbal, floating above, like with an assistant holding, I think he was 70 at least then, and he's floating above a canvas, like with a made up kind of gimbal and sort of straps or whatever sort of torture device. And so I was really blessed by those. So those were nods to that. But that work, writing, came from, they say in life that you'll have, you know, a couple of teachers in your life that you'll always remember and always follow. And I remember when my teacher read us the poem, The Highwayman. So the Highwayman comes riding. So it's a really, really long, it's almost a story rather than a poem. And I remember it being really exciting and really scary at the same time. And that was one of those things that really came for that. But yeah, so those are about the Nolan. So the Marguerite's really interesting because it's about my old man. I talk about my old man. A lot of my work is paternal, just through things I've heard him say in lines. But it's actually about me remembering him still shaving to this day. Like I'd get up for high school and every day, he had a job where every day he shaved. I was like, you don't have to shave. Every day he'd shave, put on a shirt, short sleeve with a tie, like cut to ribbons, toilet paper on the thing. He'd make the 2 trips, the trains and everything like that, you know, and I used to admire him, and I remember admiring him even then. And he always said to me, like, it doesn't matter if you're running the country or sweeping the floors, like you give it, you know, you have a work ethic. So I get my work ethic from my old man, and I'm forever grateful for that. So, but that's about poise, that's about rhythm, poise, the way you think. And then I've taken the apple from the face, which I said I didn't change it, but that's the only one that's changed. And I put the exact apple that was in the face, because it's called Son of Man, Marguerite, Son of Man, René Magritte. And I put it on his head. And it talks about, you know, stand still, be ready, but you know, I'm gonna do this with a shaky hand. And so it's about that idea of poise and just delivery when other things be shaky.